Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and today, it's a big one. We're going to be talking about the newest album from Anderson Paak called Ventura. Alright, admit it, if you're an Anderson Paak fan, you're not remotely surprised by this release. But before we go any further into that, let's talk a little bit about the aftermath of Oxnard, his release late last year that I still think is pretty good, but was a disappointment, not in the same tier as Malibu or Yes Loud or even Venice if we're being honest, because instead of taking the strengths of Anderson Paak, a phenomenal performer and a pretty damn good songwriter with buckets of easy charisma, and then pairing him to the loose eclectic production that made him such a star in the underground, he was given a bunch of highly synthetic, regimented grooves that had nothing close to the organic warmth and texture that made Malibu so striking and infectious, and the writing hadn't exactly evolved along the way. And while the album got some critical acclaim from a few people, it was not the big shot into the mainstream that you would expect from the big expensive marketing push that he received. And many people were quick to point out the project had more of Dr. Dre's fingertips in the sound than what had previously worked back on Malibu. And on the one hand, I could have seen that sound working. After all, I might be alone in saying that it worked on Dr. Dre's 2015 Compton album, but I'm in the minority of holding that project as one of the best of the year. But Anderson Paak had evolved considerably, and trying to place him into Dr. Dre's comfort zone smacked us some real mismanagement. So I expected the course correction. Maybe a mixtape, maybe something loose and thrown together to placate the die-hard, very vocal fans, and maybe win over some of the few people who had loved Oxnard. But what I didn't expect was it coming so fast, nor did I expect the pedigree of the acts behind him. Smokey Robinson, Jasmine Sullivan, Brandy, a sample of the late Nate Dogg, even Andre 3000, who frankly seems like a natural partner for Anderson Paak given the broad similarities in their style, certainly more than Dr. Dre. And I'll be honest, I'm kinda stunned the label threw this kind of money for a course correction. Getting these samples and these guest stars do not come cheap, especially if there was live instrumentation, because that takes a keen executive to recognize that something's been mishandled by them and they need to give the artist a lot of space and the money to make it work. That takes a level of self-awareness that I honestly did not think Dr. Dre had, but alright, enough wasting time with the management. What do we get on Ventura? Well, let me start with this. If we're just traveling on the basis of what Ventura has to do, it accomplishes its goal. It's a course correction away from the sound and tone of Oxnard that didn't work towards something that's more soulful and loose, along the lines of Malibu, and should do exactly what it's supposed to do in order to win back those fans. There's a little bit less experimentation on this album, and if you ever want to make the comparison between mid-70s soul records and Anderson Paak as blatant as they've ever been, it is on this album. But you know what? He's back in his pocket, in his comfort zone. He's got those vibes. Or does he? Yeah, this might be a bit of a surprise to some of you, because while Anderson Paak is in a better state of mind, or so you might think, this is a project, the more listens I gave it, the more I felt that there was something strange going on. Comfortable but searching, going home but it's not the same, and I'm not sure I like it nearly as much as I wanted, especially if it's going back to a sound that I previously liked. And you know what, I think a significant part of it, right from the start, is Anderson Paak himself. Now don't get me wrong, he still's got the soulful vocal texture and effortless charisma that makes him such a compelling presence behind the microphone. That's not really going anywhere, but it seems like a dimension of his performance just isn't here in the same way, as most notably the upbeat, vibrant side that's been his biggest, most infectious draw. Anderson Paak used to throw himself into his performances, which gave his project a sense of balance and playfulness, both in content and delivery, that's just not really here in the same way. I mean, I get a desire to play things more seriously, play it down, be a bit more mature, or try to double down on the more mature-minded vibes of the retro 70s that he's calling back to. But it's a whole dimension of Anderson Paak's personality that's missing the verve and spirit and momentum that gave projects like Malibu such dynamic contrasts and momentum. Even on Oxnard, there is a lighthearted flair that just doesn't really come through on Ventura. And while this album is intentionally playing things a little bit more low-key, romantic, a bit more of a wistful vibe, vibe, you lose some of that sense of fun. And given that this is one of his shortest albums to date, it wasn't like there wasn't space to include some of that. And while I'm on the subject of space, it's hard not to feel like some of these big name guest stars could have had a little bit more air or something to do on this project. Jasmine Sullivan on Good Heels is stuck with basically a glorified interlude, even if it does sound really good. Both Sonia Elise and Brandy are playing more of a backing presence than voices of their own on this album. And well, of course, Andre 3000's verse is fantastic and on topic. It just happens so early in the project, it's hard not to feel like Ventura's front-loaded, especially with Smokey Robinson's guest appearance right after that. Again, I'm not surprised. If you want to win back your audience in record time, this is how you do it, but I wish it didn't feel like so much of a label move, so transparent. And let me stress, that's not the observation that I want to make, because this is an album that's all about the vibes, all about relaxing. The goal is that if there are seams or rough patches, you try not to notice and just take it in and relax. Hell, that's one reason why Malibu is so fantastic. It's a project so rooted in well-paced texture and organic production and groove that even if there are some jarring tonal changes, and there are, it's so warm and inviting you really don't care. And I'll give Anderson Paak and his producers a lot of credit. He's really damn close to nailing it here too. A little bit cleaner than I personally prefer, but where this project shines are the grooves. A ton of live instrumentation between the crisp drums, the firm bass lines, the guitar rollick, the flourishes of keyboards against the supple wails of strings and horns. Again, I gotta give him credit. This sounds expensive and rich in the way that those old mid-70s soul records would. Yeah, there are a couple groups that are stiffer than I'd prefer. I expected to like Pharrell's contributions to Twilight, but they feel a little bit too sandy and fidgety in order to match the vocals. And there's similar dry stiffness to songs like Winner's Circle and the fizzy funk on Chosen One, a song that I kept trying to convince myself came together better than it does. And then there's Yada Yada. I don't know what the hell is up with the drums and the keyboard mixing on that song, but there's an odd flatness that doesn't really complement the keyboard melody. And you know what? If it sounds like a nitpicking, it's because I am, but it's also more because I know just how lush and potent Anderson Paak's production can sound at its best, and I don't want to see him cutting corners. The organic warmth of Make It Better is some of this terrific old school soul. The sensual flip on Reachin' Too Much works way better than I thought it would. The pianos add a great slippery tug to Jet Black, and the drums sliding around the main tones of Good Heels makes me wish that song was longer. Again, when you can really sink into the vibe, this can be a really inviting listen. It will kill in the summertime, and I wish I could say the same about a lot of the lyrics. Now let me stress, there are a couple caveats to this. For these sorts of vibes, the writing doesn't have to aim that high. In Anderson Paak's credit, you can definitely tell he's playing things a little bit safer this time around, probably for the better given some of the lyrical missteps on Oxnard. Many of the songs are framed as reconciliation, heavy-handed in the subtext to win back the audience, but he does have the charm to make it work, or playing to set up more of a relaxing, kind of late evening dance vibe. Hell, Reachin' Too Much almost brought a shade of that old ego back until you realize it's a message to both Anderson Paak and his partner that they should just relax and not reach too much in the relationship. And yet what's kind of interesting is that it doesn't seem even all that natural, even to him on that song. Winner's Circle outright says that if he's not having to chase the women, he knows he'll just get them and the luster's kind of gone. And it's not the first time that he starts to seem a little bit less sympathetic in his impulses, with his frustrations curdling on Yada Yada. For as much as he's undervalued, he's just trying to enjoy his short time in the spotlight amidst the calamities around him, so give him a break. And then he's got words for the underground that they might want to hold him back from expanding on Chosen One that comes on one of his better rap verses, to be honest, but also highlights how he probably didn't want to have to push another project like this out so quickly to win back some of those underground fans. And this is where the conversation does get a bit murky, because on the one hand, the shift in quality absolutely came when he was on a major label and when Dre got too involved, but on the other hand, it's not like anybody was expecting Anderson Paak to be a bastion of lyrical artistic integrity here. Look at a song like King James as a gentle update to the revolutionary vibes you got from 70s soul decades ago. Compared to what D'Angelo did on Black Messiah 5 years ago and how much he pulled from Smokey Robinson, it doesn't quite hit with the same impact. It is a little shallower, but Anderson Paak is trying to be lighter and more accessible. That makes sense. which makes me wish this album didn't feel as lacking in spark and humor and warmth in order to complement it. But circling back to what I said earlier, this is a project that feels in search of its vibe rather than comfortably in it. And that takes us to the final song, What Can We Do? A manufactured duet with late Nate Dogg using some old unreleased vocals. Now on the one hand, I've always found this kind of skeevy, and Anderson Paak doesn't really get a pass here, especially when you can tell they got the name for the featuring credit, and that would have been expensive as hell for the major label to license, but probably for the best in the long run. People will see a Nate Dogg credit, they will come. But that being said, it's very telling how much Nate Dogg's presence is so kind of capricious as he leaves a great song to bounce off into the light after telling Anderson Paak to erase it all, leaving him, just like with Kendrick Lamar and Tupac on Mortal Man on To Pimp a Butterfly, trying to recapture a moment of magic and get some answers that you'll never really get. Searching for the perfect vibe that Nate Dogg always had, but never really finding it. It's a weird note to end things on, but kind of poignant in a funny way. And yeah, it's thematically rich, it's potent, it lends the project some unexpected heft and pathos I didn't expect. And yet if I couldn't see the obvious seams of how much it was engineered to be a course correction and get there, I think I'd like this more. And again, there is something that's just not quite as organic as it should be with this project. And what's all the more frustrating is that most people won't hear the difference, or if they do, they don't care that it's even there. But it is what's holding me back from loving this as much as I would like. Because again, for as lush and tempting as this project can be, look, it's not as dynamic, it's not as organic. You got the feeling that some of the guests are being used more for their name than how much they really add or complement the song. And I find myself just not having as much fun as I really wanted, as I get the feeling Anderson Paak didn't have as much fun as he really wanted making this. As much as I don't really want to believe that Oxnard and Ventura are two sides of the same coin to be released this close, when it comes to an emotionally balanced album, I think you can take the best from both and have a project that could be on the tier of Malibu with versatility and potency, if not even greater. But as it is, yeah, solid 7 out of 10 recommendation, especially if you're looking for that Malibu feel and texture, if not in substance. And I'll admit, I'll enjoy it for as much as it will get play at a lot of summer parties, but I just wish I could slide into that vibe just a little bit more. It's close, but not quite there. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I'd like to like and subscribe. I'd be more than grateful. I know it's probably going to annoy a lot of people, and folks, I really wanted to love this, but it just didn't quite get there. When you can see the seams, you can see the mechanism pushing it into place, it just gets distracting. And that was the case with this album. The magic just didn't quite come. And I wish if Anderson Paak sounded like he was having a bit more fun, it probably would have gotten there. But hey, if you want to buy or stream the album, links down there below. And I got the poll up there for you all. Tell me how wrong I am. Looking forward to it. But beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And hey, if you want to help support the channel, link to my Patreon right over there. Recently, the new poll for the next episode of Resonators has gone up. Happy to see you guys contribute there. And beyond that, just a quick reminder that Billboard Breakdown is coming tomorrow, and that Billboard Breakdown has moved to a new channel. Please keep in mind that it might be updated on the playlist on the main channel, but check out Billboard Breakdown's exclusive channel in the title card right there. Happy to have you guys over there so you don't miss the update. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.